Why does it feel like we're living through the prequel to a history book we're terrified to read? You feel it, right? That constant grinding pressure. The feeling that no matter how hard you work, how much you lean in or grind, the ladder keeps getting longer and the rungs keep getting farther apart. It's a quiet desperation shared by millions. For the past 50 years, we've been sold a story. It's called Neoliberalism. It sounds boring and academic, but its rules govern your entire life. The story goes like this. You are on your own. The market is king. If you succeed, it's because you're a hard-working genius. And if you fail, well, that's on you. Personal responsibility. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. These are the hallmarks. Have you heard this before? The problem is, the game was rigged from the start. It destroyed our communities, our unions, our sense of belonging to something bigger than ourselves. And what it left behind is a landscape of cultural wreckage. We're seeing skyrocketing rates of despair, addiction, crushing loneliness, credit we can no longer manage, the American dream of owning a house slipping through our fingers. We've been told to find solace in self-help books and wellness apps, to optimize ourselves for a system that is fundamentally broken. We became strivers, trying to soothe the pain, or dropouts, numbing it with binge-watching and a temporary high. This has created a profound, desperate longing. A longing for community, for safety, for a sense that we have some control over our own lives, a longing to simply feel good in a world designed to make us feel anxious and insecure. And that longing is the most powerful political force in the world. But while progressives were busy drafting 10-point policy plans, the far right was tapping directly into that raw emotional pain. They didn't offer policies, they offered a tribe. They offered an enemy. They offered simple explanations for a world that felt confusing and out of control. Therefore, when a system fails this spectacularly, it doesn't just fade away. It creates the perfect conditions for something far more dangerous to take its place. Political scientists have a term for it, democratic backsliding. It's not a military coup. It's not a dramatic revolution. It's a slow, quiet, methodical death. A stealth authoritarianism led by people you elected. They use the language of democracy to dismantle democracy itself, one legal step at a time. Think of the key indicators. They reject the rules of the game. They deny the legitimacy of their opponents. They tolerate and even encourage violence, and they move to silence the press and their critics. Sound familiar? This isn't a bug in the system, it's the feature. Populist authoritarian leaders feed parasitically on the fear and insecurity that neoliberalism created. They find the cracks in society, the economic anxiety, cultural resentments, and they drive a wedge into them until the entire foundation shatters. Trump isn't the cause of this decay. He is the most grotesque symptom. He is the ultimate rebel archetype, a morbid response to a dying order, promising to burn down the system that hurts so many people. But the fire he's lighting won't cleanse anything. It's designed to consume what's left of our democratic institutions. Which brings us to the terrifying reality of where we are right now. The cultural despair and the political decay have merged into a single monstrous movement, and we have the receipts. Let's take a look at a report from what the HuffPost had to say right after the 2024 election. HuffPost reported that Christian nationalists feel their dark prophecies are now coming true. And here's their opening line. A fascist has been elected president. For a large swath of the Republican Party, Trump was chosen by God for such a time as this. It's all right there. The final fusion. That old saying, when fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross. It turns out to be frighteningly accurate. Lewis, after all, wrote, "It can't happen here." The widely read 1930s dystopian novel depicting an Adolf Hitler-like figure rising to power in the U.S. and setting up concentration camps for members of certain marginalized groups, as well as for his political enemies. The book's sardonic title has served as the genesis for innumerable op-eds and magazine features in the decades since it was published, with headlines like, "Could it happen here?" and "Did it happen here?" Still, with the 2024 election victory of Donald Trump, there's a very good argument that the particularly virulent strain of fascism imagined in Lewis's novel, and the destruction of whatever semblance of democracy this country has enjoyed, are on the cusp of happening here and now. This isn't a fringe movement anymore. It's a movement that's in the White House, and it's fueled by a theology that sees its leader not as a politician, but as an agent of God, saved for a divine purpose. We remember what Trump said himself. As HuffPost reported, Trump said, "My faith took on new meaning on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, where I was knocked to the ground, essentially by what seemed like a supernatural hand, suggesting that divine intervention saved him from a would-be assassin's bullet. This isn't just political theater. Christian nationalist leaders started to compare Trump to King Jehu, a biblical figure who didn't just defeat his enemies, he slaughtered them. He wanted millions to believe that God saved him to be their retribution. And this is the part where we have to face a very hard truth. This didn't happen in a vacuum. The disillusioned will always grasp at false hope, even if it arrives in the grotesque form of Trump, rather than accept the hollow, incremental half-measures of a Democratic Party that long ago abandoned them. For millions, those half-measures are indistinguishable from no hope at all. The rot of hopelessness has been festering for decades, as communities have been sacrificed to corporate greed and political expediency. But it is not yet too late. Democracy still has one chance to be redeemed if the Democratic Party wakes up and answers the urgency of this moment. They must recognize that despair is fertile ground for authoritarianism. When the great democratic promise collapses, the drift toward fascism is not hypothetical. It is inevitable. Yet if they awaken now, rebuild trust, and offer real, bold solutions, they can still turn this around. This is the choice. Not just in the voting booth, but every day. It's a choice we must demand from our representatives. Will they find the courage to reject their megadonors and special interests, and finally fight for the people they were elected to serve? Or will they offer more of the same decay that brought us to this cliff? I desperately wish I could go back in time and see anyone else elected. I would have gladly taken a smaller shit sandwich over this turd supreme. Unfortunately, it was foreseen, not an accident, inevitable. It was the predictable result of a 50-year slide. For decades, the rich got richer while everyone else got left behind, and our political system caters to the rich. And let's face it, you cannot satisfy the morbidly rich. My personal belief is that billionaires shouldn't even exist. If you're interested, you should do the math and figure out how much it would take to spend just $1 billion as an individual. It's remarkable. As much as I dislike Trump and what he stands for, I'm not really excited to go back to neoliberalism's status quo. That being said, I haven't lost faith that America can correct its course. We can get back to a country that works for all of us, not just the financial elite. To do that, we need leaders who are genuinely independent. Leaders who will stop serving corporate masters and start serving the people. It's not complicated. Tax the morbidly rich. Close every last tax loophole. Regulate Wall Street. End Citizens United, the ruling that allowed corporations and unions to spend unlimited, often undisclosed amounts of money in elections. Regulate private equity. Eliminate stock buybacks. Reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act. Abolish monopolies and vertical integration. Healthcare for all, and so on and so on. It's time to demand a government that works for its citizens. Because if we don't build a country that works for everyone, someone will always be there to promise they can burn it all down for the low, low price of our freedom. Truth never rests. Defiance till the end.